Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Jaya Radha Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Gaura Pimanande Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simad His Divine Grace Hirabai Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi Biti Founder Charyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Harinama Sankirtana Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jainitai Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksuranmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakan Sanagorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Mukam karoti vacharam pagom langayate girim yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from the first canto, third chapter, which is entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And today we are looking at text number 36, right? Correct? Yes. Text 36. Okay. Sa va idam vishvam. Here we go. Amogha lilaha srijati avati atti na sajjate asmin bhuteshu chantarhita atma tantraha sad vargikam jigrati shad guneshaha Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha Sri Jatya Vatyati na sajjate smin Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha Sadvargikam jigrati sad Guneshaha. Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha. Sri Jatya Bhatyati na sajjate smin. Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha. Sadvargikam jigrati sadgunai saha. Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha. Sri Jatya Bhatyati na sajjate smin. Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha. Sadvargikam jigrati sadgunai saha. Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha. Sri Jatya Bhatyati na sajjate smin. Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha. Sadvargikam jigrati sadguneshaha. Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha. Sri Jatya Bhatyati na sajjate smin. Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha. Sadvargikam jigrati sadguneshaha. Sava idam vishvam amoghalilaha. Sri Jatya Bhatyati na sajjate smin. Bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha. Sadvargikam jigrati sadguneshaha. Saha. The Supreme Lord. Va. Alternately. Idam. This. Vishvam. Manifested universes. Amoghalilaha. One whose activities are spotless. Srijati creates. Abati ati maintains and annihilates. Na not. Sajjate is affected by. Asmin in them. Bhuteshu in all living beings. Cha also. Antarhitaha living within. Atmatantraha self-independent. Satvargikam endowed with all the potencies of his opulences. Jigrati superficially attached, like smelling the fragrance. Shat guna ishaha master of the six senses.
Master of the six senses.
A translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. Kindly repeat after me. The Lord,
Lord,
whose activities are always spotless,
whose activities are always spotless,
is the master of the six senses
is the master of the six senses,
and is fully omnipotent
and is fully omnipotent
with six opulences.
with six opulences.
He creates
He creates
the manifested universes,
the manifested universes,
maintains them,
maintains them,
and annihilates them
and annihilates them
without being
without being
in the least affected.
in the least affected.
He is within every living being
He is within every living being
and is always independent.
and is always independent.
Purport. The prime difference between the Lord and the living entities is that the Lord is a creator and the living entities are the created. Here, he is called the Amogha Lila, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. Amogha Lila, Prabhupada translates in the word for word as one whose activities are spotless. We find this word moga. Moga sha moga karmano, moga jnana vichesasa, rakshasim masurim machaiva, mohinim prakritim sritaha. Moga. Moga sha. Asha means desire. So moga, when one takes shelter of the Mohini Prakriti, which is the external energy of the material world, then his desires, moga asha, moga karmano, karma, activities, and moga jnana, his knowledge, they all become frustrated or are unsuccessful. So the opposite of being unsuccessful or frustrated is amoga, which is translated here as pure or spotless. Yeah, Amogha Lila, the Lila pastimes, activities of the Lord are spotless. So just to continue the purport here, I'll just repeat the last line we read. Here he is called the Amogha Lila, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. Those who create disturbance in his creation are themselves disturbed. True enough. He is transcendental to all material afflictions because he is full with all six opulences, namely wealth, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. And thus, he is the master of the senses. He creates these manifested universes in order to reclaim the living beings who are within them, suffering threefold miseries, maintains them, and in due course annihilates them without being the least affected by such actions. He is connected with this material creation very superficially, as one smells odor without being connected with the odorous article. Non-godly elements, therefore, can never approach him despite all endeavors. Yes. So that's the end of the purport. Reading again the translation. The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. So that is the transcendental position of Krishna. And various incarnations who appear in the material world. Although they come in the material world, they remain transcendental, unaffected by the threefold miseries that are everywhere in the material creation, and unaffected also by the three modes of material nature. So one who follows in the footsteps of the Lord, or one who takes shelter of that same energy within which the Lord is perpetually, eternally situated, can also become unaffected by the modes of material nature, can also rise above or be unaffected by the threefold miseries of life. You see. So this verse I was mentioning a little earlier, since the word Amogalila. Amogalila means spotless activities. Whose activities are spotless. So, Mogasha Moga Karmano Moga Jnana Vichetasa Raksasim. This is demoniac, impure situation when we take shelter of the Mohini Prakriti, which is the external energy. Rakshasim, Mohinim Shrita. And therefore the previous verse to that verse is mentioning how those who rather, and that's the position of the devotees, those who rather take shelter of the Daivi Prakriti, Mahatmanastamam Partam Daivim Prakritim Asritaha Bhajanti Ananya Manaso. Their mind is always fixed or directed towards the internal energy of the Lord, which is manifest in the material world through activities of devotional service. That means that as long as the living entity remains under the shelter of the internal energy of the Lord, until and unless the living entity takes shelter of that internal energy, then he will be subjected to so much of disturbance. and therefore will be will be in a difficult condition, um, and whatever he does will not actually be successful. So, in other words, um, the Lord is being the Lord. Of course, is always eternally in that transcendental uh, condition, and although we are conditioned in the material world, we have this opportunity, if we are fortunate enough to come in contact with this knowledge, Vedic knowledge, when properly received, when properly understood, when properly applied, will bring us actually to this transcendental position. We were reading this nice explanation also, which confirms directly what is being explained here in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which deals specifically with the three modes of material nature. Because our problem actually are the modes of material nature. Our problem is being subjected, being conditioned by the modes of material nature. And as long as we are under these modes of material nature, we are also simultaneously forced to suffer the threefold miseries of life. Adhyatmic, adhibautic, adhidaivic. So Krishna explains, as he does in many places, this is 14. Both the first and the second verse are very nice, nicely describing this point. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Param Bhuya Pravaksyami Jnanam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. And the translation, the Blessed Lord said, he's speaking to Arjuna, again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained to supreme perfection. So supreme perfection means to no longer be under the influence of the modes of material nature, and to transcend the threefold miseries of life. This is further explained in the next verse, which goes as follows, text number 2 of chapter 14. Idam jnanam upasritya mama sadharvam agataha sargepi nopajayante pralaye na vyatanti cha. So jnanam upasritya, asra means to take shelter. One who takes shelter of this knowledge, Krishna is explaining, then mama sadharvyam agataha. Agata means to attain. One who takes shelter of this knowledge, one who takes shelter of this process, he attains mama sadharmyam, my nature. Sadharmyam is translated as nature. Our nature is in connection with dharma, Sanatan Dharma, which is a major topic, of course. So that's a nice and simple way to understand what is dharma, as Srila Prabhupada very nicely, very expertly conveyed actually to the Western world, something that other spiritual persons could not convey. Srila Prabhupada introduced the principles of religiosity, or the essence of dharma, without without giving a sense to people who heard Prabhupada's explanation, which he presented without any adulteration, as it is. Anyone who heard Prabhupada's explanation, most people who were sufficiently attentive, they could understand that it's not a question of being or belonging to this religion or to that religion, but it's a question of understanding the essence of religion, isn't it? Which is the actual definition of dharma. Translated here and elsewhere also as what is most natural for us. So the subject matter is actually very deep, because it is what we find actually in all different shastras, but especially in the Vedic literatures, the subject matter, if we compare to other texts or other literatures, the subject matter of dharma is more explicitly, more profoundly explained and delineated, because it covers both spiritual dharma and material dharma. And that's a major theme for those who are having some understanding of varnashrama dharma. Because varnashrama dharma is dealing especially with the material dimension or material aspect of dharma. And as long as we are here in the material world, especially as long as we are connected in any way with any of the modes of material nature, then we must know about and we must follow the principles that are given in the Shastra in regards to material swadharma. Spiritual swadharma and material swadharma. So sometimes people will wrongly think, that when we speak about material swadharma, it means that we are neglecting or giving less importance to spiritual swadharma, which is not the case. What is dangerous is that in the name of dharma, we neglect this aspect of dharma. In other words, dharma, for those who are here in the material world, dharma means understanding these two dimensions, the spiritual and the material dimension, and working towards harmonizing just like today, I was talking to one family yesterday, very nice devotees, and they are beginning to get some understanding of Varnashrama Dharma and how actually, according to Srimad Bhagavatam especially, we are meant to live a much more simplified lifestyle. Our lifestyle is meant to be connected with cows and with land, because that is the Vedic norm. That is the that is the culture. You know, Vedic culture is land-based, cow-based culture, which is practically forgotten in modern day society. So the dilemma of this particular family was that, as they began to understand more and more that, well, actually, this is, the way the residents of Vrindavan were living, which is the way that most people in India and even in other parts of the world were living up until not too long ago, means in villages, isn't it? Without having to travel so much, without having to be enamored by so many material gadgets as we find today. And people were by nature pious, because they were not addicted to so many sinful activities. Sinful activities are especially found, of course, not exclusively, but the cities. Prabhupada explains how city life, modern day cities, we're not talking about Vedic cities, modern day cities are places where people are totally engaged in all kinds of activities of sense gratification. And I mean, there's all kinds of, as we know, propaganda, advertisement, because with money one can get so much of sense gratification, and when that is encouraged and allowed, then naturally people who are generally lacking in proper knowledge are attracted to such activities of sense gratification. And of course, the end result is that people become frustrated, and people cannot live in harmony with one another, and it creates the kind of situation we have in the world today, as we know, which is described in the Shastra as Varna Sankara, where everything is mixed up and confused, etc., like that. So, therefore, the importance, it begins with proper cultivation of knowledge, receiving this knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and not only transcendental knowledge, that's the point, regarding dharma, regarding nature. We have an original spiritual nature, and we have an original material nature. Original material nature is, for example, when we are healthy, we are less disturbed, isn't it? Because that is, to be healthy is the natural condition of someone who lives properly and who hasn't maybe accumulated too much of bad karma. But to be diseased is not our natural position. And when we are diseased, especially if we are forced to be in a hospital and forced to take medicines and forced to take all kinds of treatment, then because it's not our natural position, therefore we're not happy. And today, because most people are not engaged in their material, constitutional, natural activities, which are meant to be connected with cows and land, therefore people also not happy, cannot be happy. And this particular family was telling me that uh, they've been in Mayapur for many years, and they were telling that actually uh, we were encouraged actually to take up, and other householders also to take up such activities, but no one is interested.
But no one is what?
No one is interested.
Oh,
Yeah. Um, there may be many reasons, and one of them definitely is that there isn't. There's a transitional period, to go from being in Maya to becoming totally purified, or to go from a conditioned position, from being conditioned to being in a situation that is more liberating. Mm. In other words, this is everywhere, many of our householders who who understand what is meant to be more natural, who would like to take up that kind of lifestyle, there's no easy means by which they can actually go from where they are today to where ideally they should be, isn't it? Which is a major problem around the world uh, for all of us, because we are caught up in this modernized, mechanized way of living, um, which is unnatural actually, and to go from where we are, which is heavily conditioned state of life, to a more natural life. Well, it's not encouraged to begin with, and secondly, uh, there are very less um, guidelines, I would say, being given how to go from where one is. It's like most of our devotees, and most increasingly, more and more people in the world are living in urban cities, right? In cities. And although some of them understand that this is not really ideal, how to go from where they are to where ideally they should be, there's no mechanism. There's no easy mechanism. As a matter of fact, most people are not even encouraged. People are rather encouraged to stay where they are. Um, Definitely, that is from the modern leadership today. Karmi leadership is encouraging that. And for us as devotees, it requires some proper insight to understand what the situation is, and in addition, what is needed, what is necessary to go from point A to point B. Point A being the unnatural lifestyle that most people are living, and go to what is meant to be more ideal. And this is meant to be very much part of our activities and objective in Krishna consciousness, to actually facilitate, just like we facilitate people, we are meant to facilitate people to advance in Krishna consciousness. That's obvious. But simultaneously, we are meant to also facilitate devotees to come back and take up a more natural lifestyle, more natural occupation, which the more we take up natural lifestyle, natural occupation, more easy it will be to actually take up spiritual life, because there's an intimate connection. So I'll just read the verse once again, which basically talked about the position of the Lord. The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. So the Lord has these six opulences because He is always transcendentally situated, and therefore His activities are spotless. We can also, those who actually cultivate this knowledge, can also develop these qualities, can also manifest these opulences that the Lord is having. In other words, the real wealth, according to Shastra, real wealth is actually having knowledge, wealth in knowledge, wealth in terms of land, in terms of grains, such type of wealth, not paper wealth as we see today, so-called paper wealth. So the more we hear such descriptions and reflect and meditate on them, then a more clear understanding will come. So any thoughts or reflections on the topic?
Well, Maharaj, when you were talking about, the transition from a very modern, mechanistic way of life to
Yes,
more natural,
yes,
I was remembering my first few years in New Vrindavan.
yeah,
In 1973, it was, now New Vrindavan is very modern,
yeah,
but when I came in 1973,
yeah.
we were, we were carrying buckets of water and,
Ah,
living in a way that for most people in the Western world was crazy.
correct.
It's crazy to voluntarily go and do something like that.
Yes,
And I remember how, in many ways, it was so difficult. It was so difficult. I remember going back to my family at one point and just like modern conveniences, it's like, oh.
yeah, right.
But, it wasn't devotees. So in that way, the attraction didn't last. But definitely as we establish these communities, we have to work out a way of making this transition. And, devotees shouldn't feel that it's impossible.
That is one of the major challenges we have. How to make this transition, how to facilitate that this transition can be made, and how to convince devotees that it is necessary to make this transition. Because if we don't voluntarily make this transition to a more natural, coming back to our nature, coming back to our material nature, coming back to our spiritual nature, then we will be forced by the laws of nature to eventually come back. But before that happens, we'll have to experience a lot of inconveniences,
And you know what made it possible, really? What really made the whole thing work?
Yeah.
and why, personally I didn't just run down the road screaming was the Association of Devotees,
Association.
the support of the devotees.
Yes.
I remember one time I had a baby. It was the middle of winter, and the stoolie diapers were freezing outside my door, and I had to unthaw them before I could even clean them because I couldn't keep them in the house.
Okay.
And I was just overwhelmed by just functioning on a daily level, doing what I had to do to just live.
Right.
And I remember going to Kaladri Prabhu and saying, I got this idea in my head. I said, Kaladri, I can't do this. I want to be with the devotees, but I can't do this. And I think that I should just, until my son is older at least, I should just move to Wheeling, the nearby town.
Right.
Get an apartment, and then at least I can chant Hare Krishna, I can just have time to do that.
Right.
Because I was struggling even to do that. And Kaladri said, Mataji, better you clean diapers in the Association of Devotees than go to Wheeling and chant Hare Krishna.
Without the association.
And I was mad when he said that. But I understood later. I understood that if I had done the other, I would have stopped chanting.
Right.
Especially at that point in time.
Yes. Yeah. The association is the key factor for, which is underlined again and again, actually, in various places in the Shastra, Sadhu Sangha. Yes. Anything from that side? No?
Есть вопросы? Дополнение, что про две, Шилпрапада говорит про две дхармы, свадхармы в Бхагавад-гите 2.31, комментарий.
So Srila Prabhupada said in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 31st,
Комментарий, да, про
in
две
the third part,
дхармы.
about two dharmas, svadharma.
То, что материально сказал.
Материал свадхарма.
Prabhupada is telling us to do karma. Prabhupada is telling us to do karma.
Где Прабхупада говорит нас делать карму,
Yeah, swakarma. Do your own
делать нашу,
work,
делать свою работу и
means according to the modes of material nature.
связано с материальным.
But in proper consciousness.
Нужно сознание.
When we do our swakarma, what is more natural for us, but in connection with Krishna, then it is no longer karmic, no longer giving material results or karmic results. So, when Krishna instructs in the Bhagavad Gita to do according to our nature, he doesn't mean that we should engage in karmic activities. He means that we should know our nature, take up activities according to that nature, but connect everything to Krishna. And in this way, spiritualize those activities. Arjuna was a warrior, so his duty was not to fight. His duty was to fight, but for the pleasure of Krishna. And therefore, his fighting on the battle of Kurukshetra did not incur any karmic reaction. It was his devotional service in the form of fighting.
Еще одно дополнение по поводу того, что невозможно переехать на землю без образования, и для этого городские. Иначе, получается, люди либо выживают в городе, либо выживают в деревне.
telling that it is impossible to move to the like a simple life, like land to the land from cities without knowledge. Otherwise, it will be surviving like nor in city survive in the farm.
Yes, of course.
Да,
No-
конечно.
knowledge is
Знание
necessary.
это важно.
Training, knowledge,
Обучение, знание.
Для
education.
этого и нужен колледж Варнашима, место, где люди получают знания одновременно и садхарме, материальные и духовные.
That's why I just need to study in Varnashram college where people get the spiritual and material knowledge. Swadharma.
Yes, absolutely.
Да, абсолютно.
Right on. This is coming from a student.
Да, это приходит. Да, да, да.
That's why he's here. Yeah, that's why Prabhupada wanted us to have Varnashram college.
Да, поэтому что-то хотел бы, да.
Yes. Jai Grantaraj Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.